of this meeting of the Laramie City Council for October 18th, 2022, which was a beautiful fall day here in Tree City, USA, Laramie, Wyoming, where we had a lot of good foliage out today. Foliage, that is. We've called the meeting to order, and if everyone would like to join me, however they see fit, for the Pledge of Allegiance, we would appreciate it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. City Clerk, can we please have a roll call?
Cumby.
Here.
Gabriel.
Here.
Harrington is absent. O'Doherty.
Here.
Schmeckel.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
And Weaver.
Here.
That is 8 present and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Go to public comment on non-agenda items. Seeing none, we'll close the public comment on non-agenda items. And I'll turn it over to the Vice Mayor for changes and setting the agenda. Vice Mayor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the following change to the agenda be approved. To remove from the consent agenda item 9I, final plat, Sundance Hill, second filing.
Second.
Motion is second from Councilmember Schmeckel. All those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Vice Mayor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the agenda be set as changed.
Once again, all those in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Second.
Aye.
Oh, thank you. And a second from Councilmember Schmeckel before we miss that piece. And any opposed? Or should we have the vote again? Great. All those in favor, now that we've had the second, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Thank you all very much for your patience. Any opposed, same sign. Seeing none, motion carries. And we have the next item on our agenda under headings for item 6, proclamations, public hearings, and notifications. We have a few of each. First proclamation we have this evening is a proclamation in recognition of Child Cancer Awareness Month, a serious thing that we'd like to spend just a moment on. I'll read that proclamation now. Whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection report cancer is the leading cause of death by disease among children in the United States. This tragic disease is detected in more than 16,000 of our nation's young people each and every year. And whereas 1 in 5 of our nation's children loses his or her battle with cancer, many infants, children, and teens will suffer from long-term effects of comprehensive treatment, including secondary cancers. An estimated 400,000 children and adolescents are diagnosed with cancer globally each year. And whereas founded nearly 30 years ago by Stephen Firestein, a member of the philanthropic Max Factor Cosmetics family, the American Cancer Fund for Children Incorporated and Kids Cancer Connection Incorporated, along with Lions Clubs International, are dedicated to helping these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection provide a variety of vital patient and psychosocial services to children undergoing cancer treatment at the Intermountain Primary Children's Hospital, Shriners Children in Salt Lake City, the Billings Clinic Hospital, the Children's Hospital Colorado, Rocky Mountain Children's Hospital at Presbyterian, St. Luke's in Denver, Rocky Mountain Pediatric Hematology Oncology in Casper, as well as participating hospitals throughout the country, thereby enhancing the quality of life for these children and their families. And whereas the American Cancer Fund for Children and Kids Cancer Connection also sponsor toy distributions, family sailing programs, positive appearance programs, Laughter Noon, Laughter is Healing, Pet Assisted Therapy, KCC Supercar Experience, educational programs, and hospital celebrations in honor of a child's determination and bravery to fight the battle against childhood cancer. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Paul Weaver, acting as mayor and president of the governing body of the city of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 29th, 2022 as Childhood Cancer Awareness Week in the city of Laramie, Wyoming, and call upon all citizens to join me and us, this council, this city government, in this special observance. And I understand that we have a guest with us this evening, Dr. Amy Firestein, and I want to welcome you, Doctor, and go ahead and say some words with us if you'd like to.
So thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I would first like to thank the City of Laramie, Mayor Weaver, Vice Mayor Pierce, and council members for supporting Childhood Cancer Awareness Week. Children with cancer need a lot of support via their families, medically, and from the community. And raising awareness about childhood cancer is a large part of this, and that's what we're doing here today. These children have to be brave, strong, and determined, as are their families and loved ones, and they have to be to face this battle. Through our work at Kids Cancer Connection, American Cancer Fund for Children, and in association with the support of government, we're able to further assist these amazing children and their families. So again, thank you for honoring these children and offering your support in the battle against childhood cancer. And we can only hope that one day we will no longer need to issue this type of proclamation. So thank you again. It's much appreciated.
Thank you, and thank you for those words and for being here to accept the proclamation virtually at our meeting, and we do appreciate your time. And I think, unfortunately, and as you touched on in your comments, it's just all too common for people to have their lives touched by cancer, including childhood cancer. I think it's well worth the proclamation to raise awareness and to talk about the efforts of these organizations. So we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing. We have a number of public hearings this evening, and I'll turn it over to our city clerk for the announcement on this public hearing. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that on the 23rd day of September 2022, an application was received in the office of the city clerk for a new bar and grill liquor license number BG12 for San Luis Mexican Restaurant LLC, doing business as San Luis Mexican Restaurant, located at 110 East Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming, for a licensing term of October 19th, 2022 through May 7th, 2023. They have withdrawn their previous application for a restaurant liquor license. Public hearing to hear comments or protests relative to this license application will be held Tuesday, October 18th at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. Action on this application will be considered at the regular meeting of City Council on Tuesday, October 18th at 6:30 p.m. All information relative to this matter is available for review at the City of Laramie City Clerk's office at 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
Thank you very much. The public hearing is open for anyone who wishes to make any statements to the council about the item. We'll leave it open, council members, for just a few seconds. Council, seeing no request for comment, we'll close that public hearing and move to the next public hearing on our agenda this evening. And as city clerk, I'd ask you to once again, please read the notice.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on October 18th, 2022 in the City Council Chambers, Laramie City Hall, 406 Ivinson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming. Due to COVID restrictions, meetings will only be held on Zoom to take public comments of the following. Final Plat 22-03, the Sundance Hill, second filing for 8 residential lots located on Colorado Avenue, zoned R2. The application has been submitted by Laramie Reboot LLC. All applications, plans, and specifications relative to these matters are available for review at the City of Laramie Planning Office at 405 Grand Avenue. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present via Zoom.
Thank you very much, and the public hearing is open. I'd invite members of the public again to make any comments to the City Council about this item that they'd like to, and we'll leave the comment open for a few moments. Council members, seeing no requests to speak on this item, we'll close the public hearing. We have a couple of more to proceed through. City Clerk, I invite you to read the notice again.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held at 6:30 p.m. on October 18th, 2022 in the City Council chambers. Due to COVID restrictions, meetings will only be held on Zoom to take public comments on the following. Original ordinance number 2051, a text amendment to multiple sections of Laramie Municipal Code Title 15 of the City Code to improve the clarity of code and correct errors. This application has been submitted by the City of Laramie. All applications, plans, and specifications relative to these matters are available for review at the City of Laramie Planning Office at 405 Grand Avenue. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present via Zoom.
We'll open the public hearing for anyone that would like to make comments on this item. Leave it open for a few moments to give folks an adequate opportunity. And seeing no requests, we'll close that. And for the last stretch of the marathon of announcements, I'll turn it over to the City Clerk.
Notice is hereby given that a public hearing of the Laramie City Council will be held Tuesday, October 18th, 2022 at 6:30 via Zoom webinar for the following purpose. Original Ordinance 2041, amending Laramie Municipal Code Chapter 10.32 related to bicycles by adding references to electric and motor-assisted bicycles, electric personal assistive mobility devices, and electric scooters. Second reading introduced by O'Doherty. All information relative to this matter is available for review at the City of Laramie City Clerk's office at 406 Ivinson Avenue. Anyone wishing to be heard should be present or may be represented by his or her agent at the meeting.
And we'll go ahead and open the comment period for this public hearing and leave it open for a few moments. Give members of the public an opportunity to speak to us on this item. And seeing none, we'll close the public comment period, and I'll just state for the record and for information purposes that there will be an opportunity to speak on these items again as they come up in the regular agenda for some of them. City Clerk, thank you for your reading of the announcements. Speaking of announcements, we have another one that we're happy to move forward to on our agenda for monthly staff recognition. And for that, I'd like to turn it over to the City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I think first, Todd Feeser, our Assistant City Manager, has a couple announcements. And while he gives those, we can move Justin Birch, our Employee of the Month, into the meeting, and I'll have a chance to tell you a little bit about him afterward.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Assistant City Manager.
Good evening, councilors. Thanks for this time to bring you up to date on a few items. I did add one announcement unbeknownst to our city manager, but you may have noticed on the city Facebook that I posted some information about the proper way to take care of dog feces, which seems like a terrible thing to talk about at a council meeting. But We are unfortunately in the park system seeing a lot of dog owners that are not picking up after their dogs, or even to the point where they'll pick up after their dogs and leave the bags in the parks or along the trails. So we're going to start a campaign to try to encourage people to do a little bit better job. And if you could just let people know and share that Facebook post around, we'd sure appreciate it. The second announcement is that on this Friday, we're going to be hosting the annual Pumpkin Dunkin' event, which is going to be back after 2-year hiatus. We're teaming up with Uniwyo Credit Union, and the event is Friday, October 21st from 5 to 7:30. It's free with your membership or with the purchase of a day pass. There's going to be arts and crafts, face painting, balloon animals, a photo booth, pumpkin decorating, monster decorating, games on the East Court, a pumpkin patch in the leisure pool with spillover into the lap pool. And we're super excited about the response we're having to that event. We'd encourage you to come out. They told me that they ended up buying 7 pallets of pumpkins today, which they were told would have about 20 pumpkins in each pallet, ended up being 40 pumpkins in each pallet. So there's about 280 pumpkins for people to take away at the end of the event. So we'd encourage you to come out and see that event and see some of the great stuff that's going up at the Laramie Community Recreation Center in partnership with Uniwyo Credit Union this Friday. The final one, City Clerk Schufeld, if you could bring up the pictures. We had 2 cleanup events this weekend. One was a cleanup in the Laramie, or was hosted by Laramie Main Street Alliance, where they had 23 community members show up. 5 of them were from Wildtech. They picked up about 32 bags of trash and garbage around the way and did multitude of cleanups around the downtown and in hopes to get prepared for homecoming that's coming up. The second cleanup, I'm not sure who hosted it up, but it was in the Laramie River. And we have a few pictures of what they picked up there. Oh, that's one of my favorites. They're cleaning out one of those gutters that goes through the sidewalk downtown. Let's see how. Still going. Ryan, did you have the 2 pictures of the river cleanup? They may not got through there, but we did have a group go through
deep ones.
Yeah, did have a group that go through the Laramie River. I'm not sure who it was, but they had quite a haul of trash, including a cooler out of the Laramie River this weekend. And we're just so appreciative of those volunteer events. If you know of anybody that wants to do a volunteer event, we can provide shovels and bags and brooms and everything they need, because everybody chipping in is what helps keep our community looking beautiful. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yeah, any questions for the Assistant City Manager on those announcements? Well, thank you very much, and it's great to see that effort, that cleanup effort, and it's nice to hear there isn't a pumpkin shortage here in the city of Laramie. We're certainly able to have all the pumpkins that we need for our events. Thank you for filling us in about those things. City Manager, is it over to you now?
Absolutely. Mayor, thank you. And Council, I'm happy to introduce to you Justin Birch from our utility division, who will be joining us tonight. And he's welcome to turn his camera on if he wants. He's not obliged to, of course, but he has come into the meeting. Hi, Justin.
Hello.
Justin is a utility maintenance worker and was nominated to be our rock star of the month by the meter supervisor, Dan Klein. Dan said that Justin was nominated because of his super easygoing nature and his really great sense of humor. We all have coworkers like that who really make it fun to be at work. Mr. Klein said that Justin is a very hard worker and is really a backbone on the meter crew for utilities. So I always love getting to introduce our employees of the month, because I always learn something about them as I'm reading through the information they were willing to share in our employee newsletter. And one of the things Justin shared is that he did have some previous experience in a water district from California from when he was younger in his life that he was able to bring here to the city of Laramie. He also has a really, really diverse background professionally beyond that, including working on heavy equipment for a military contractor. He's been to pretty much every state on the continental U.S., it sounds like, as well as Algeria, Iraq, Oman, Dubai, and a lot of other places. So it was fun to learn that about him. And then he has a ton of other experience that I won't go into, because frankly, the list is too long, Justin. You've just done too many things. Locally, he has also been a volunteer firefighter for the for the Albany County Fire District for many, many years, since 2009, I believe. So it's nice to see when our employees are doing good works on the job and on the clock, but also contributing to the community in their off time. And the favorite thing I learned about Justin from reading what he shared in our newsletter was that he and his wife, Candace, recently, well, not that recently, a while ago, adopted a 20-pound cat named Cecil from the Laramie Animal Shelter. That's quite an additional grocery bill that you took on there, Justin. So we appreciate you so much for being such a great, wonderful contributor to our crews. And to all of the great work that you do working with the public. I've received some nice comments about your customer service, particularly in difficult situations where we have folks who might be experiencing a failure in those utility systems that are affecting them at home. So thank you for everything you do, and I'm so glad you were willing to be here with us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, Mr. Birch, and being here with us, and bigger thanks for showing up every day to do the work that you do for the city of Laramie. Those are some interesting anecdotes we got to hear about your adventures. I bet you guys have a lot of those.
Yes.
And we always like to say this at these kind of I hear about employee opportunities. The city council doesn't get to do that a lot. And so we really appreciate it. And we especially appreciate it when people join us for these, they give you a little bit of thumbs up and hear a little bit more about the work that you do. That's good for us to hear. It's good for people to hear. And we really thank you and appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet. Councilmember Schuster.
Yes, I have the honor of calling him friend and neighbor because he's in our area over
Hi,
there.
neighbor.
Well, that is also good to hear about. And of course, Mr. Birch, if Councilmember Schuster is having any problems, be sure to move him to the bottom of the work list that day and take care of other folks first. I'm sure he wouldn't want it any other way. And we're just glad to see you and to hear about the work that you do for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The recognition well deserved.
With that, Mayor, that is all of the staff announcements tonight. Thank you.
All right, and we thank you both. And Councilmember Schuster, you had a request for an announcement that you'd like to make, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. It's getting to be that season. So one of my other good friends that I work with out at the rifle range is very involved with Toys and Tots. So I wanted to let you know that Toys and Tots is going to start opening up their building, or whatever I want to call it. They are straight across the street from the First Interstate Bank. It is 216 Ivinson. And if you have something big to drop off or they're not open at the time, I have their phone number, 505-264-8892. And that is Rick that'll answer the other end. And you make appointments to drop off anything you'd like to them. We appreciate everything on that too.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, that'll be the close of announcements, and we want to thank everybody who made one and provided us with some information. It's always great to meet and hear a little bit more about our employees. Item number 7 is disclosures by city council members, and if there are any city council members that wish to disclose any conflicts of interest about any of the items coming before us on the agenda this evening, now would be the time. Seeing none, we'll move forward to item number 8, and I will call on the Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Motion and a second, that time by Councilmember Cumby. It was a close one, but that's what I heard. All right, so we'll have a roll call vote. City Clerk, please.
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington, absent. O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent.
Thank you, City Clerk and Council. The consent agenda motion to approve is carried. And that now takes us into item number 10, the beginning of our regular agenda. For item number 11, I'm going to call on Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to award the bid for Unit 379 excavator without trade-in to Wyoming Machinery, Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the total amount of $137,150 and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Second from Councilmember Schuster, and call on Mr. Webb. Welcome back.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, City Council, Unit 379 is indeed an excavator. I call it a mini excavator. It's a little guy, but this is a very important piece of equipment for us. Anytime there's a water break, sewer break, this is the first piece of equipment to go out and start digging. We were happy to see it come in under budget, and my understanding is that they are ready to deliver as soon as awarded. Which is really nice because we've been waiting a long time for equipment and vehicles, as you know, but apparently Wyoming Machinery has this sitting in their lot in Cheyenne right now. So with that, I'll take any questions if you have them.
Any questions for Mr. Webb? Mr. Webb, what's the scale difference between what you would call a mini excavator and a regular excavator?
Honorable Mayor, I don't know. I'd have to look up like the different weights and sizes and stuff. But in my past, I've operated a very large excavator, and so to me, this is a mini excavator.
I got you.
It's big enough to get the job done, but it's smaller than I think a traditional one. And the reason is we use them quite a bit in the alleys. And so they can maneuver really well inside tight spaces.
Thank you. Quick follow-up is what kind of lifetime expectancy do we get on these kinds of pieces of equipment?
Yeah, Mayor, I think the one we're trading in is 10 years old right now. This machine isn't one of those that works hours every day. But when it is put to work, it's very valuable and needed. And so this one lasts a little bit longer because the hours don't get racked up as quick as some of the other equipment we have.
Thank you. Understood. Appreciate those answers. Any other questions or comments on this item? Why don't we see if there's a public comment on it? Seeing none. Councilmember Schuster, I'd just like to say I think I got 11 and 12 backwards, so thank you for your patience. We'll call on you for the next one. I know. Thank you, though.
Mayor Weaver, if you come out to Tech, I'll give you a personal tour and show you a one size smaller than what they are getting. This would fit in your garage, but it would be tight. It's that tall, okay? But
Okay.
we have some out there smaller and some larger too, if you want to see some sizes of equipment.
So not as small as like a Bobcat, but much smaller than the regular thing that we think of as an excavator, maybe.
Correct.
Okay. Appreciate that. And your patience with the order of the agenda. City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote? I didn't see any public comment requests.
Okay. Somerville,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Harrington, absent. Schmeckel,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent.
That motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. We have item number 12, Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you very much. The title is Award of Bids for Units 335, 344, 361, Service Trucks with Trade-In. I move to award the bid for the replacements of units 335, 344, 361 service trucks with trade-in to Ken Garf of Cheyenne, Wyoming, in the amount not to exceed $260,776. Amend the budget as appropriated and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce, and turn it back over to Public Works Director Mr. Webb.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, these three trucks are for the utility division. They're what we call the service trucks. So these are like 3/4 ton pickup trucks with the big service bodies on them and small cranes on the back. So when our guys go out to do services, they have all their equipment and tools that they carry on these trucks. So unfortunately, this size truck, a 3/4 ton truck, doesn't come in a hybrid, but we did spec the alternative on it for the idle reduction. And so we're also adding the idle reduction on all three of these vehicles. We went out to bid. We had one bidder, Ken Graff over in Cheyenne. They've been pretty loyal bidders for us lately. It's the old Spradley bar. Ken Graff bought the Spradley bar. But anyway, these three vehicles came in at a total of $260,076 with the alternates that we're asking to add on. And we're recommending award to Ken Graff. We'll take any questions if you have them.
Thank you very much. I've got Councilmember O'Doherty.
I want to thank Mr. Webb for giving the idle reduction. Can you tell us, or maybe it's Councilor Schuster's department, how that works on those kind of trucks?
Mr. Webb, you get first crack.
Okay, Councilor Doherty, through you, Mayor. The idle reduction, we've been getting that in just about every vehicle that's not a hybrid that's coming in. We've been adding that on as a bid alternate. And so what that does is basically when the vehicle is in an idle, even at a stoplight, the engine will cut off. So it's not using fuel, and then the engine won't start up again until the gas pedal is pushed, and then it immediately fires up and goes. And it's actually becoming really common in a lot of vehicles now. A lot of them are coming standard with idle reduction on it. But we're still doing some analysis, but we've seen some fuel savings, obviously, when guys are out on job sites and they need the vehicle idling to keep the temperatures up in the cold weather or what have you. This will shut down, and similar to the hybrid, when the battery starts to get low, it'll automatically kick back on. So anyway, that's what it does. It's a fuel savings idle reduction technology.
Thank you.
It's interesting to hear about that technology. Councilmember Schuster, is that pretty much an industry standard across most vehicles at this point? Or is it becoming one anyway?
Yes, it is. And I've heard it several times when I've had my window down. If someone pulls up next to me at a stoplight, and you'll just hear it immediately shut down. And then a lot of them are set to the brake pedal. So as long as they have their foot on the brake pedal at that stoplight or stop sign or whatever, till they're waiting till it clears, as soon as they take their foot off the brake pedal to move it to the throttle, it will then immediately restart and drive away. So it gives you about a 1 second delay is what you end up with over a normal vehicle.
Seems all right. That's really interesting to hear about. Mr. Webb, the council is not unaware of how much of the workload on our carbon reduction plan that your department has been carrying, and we always appreciate to hear about those efforts, and they come in different forms. Not everything's going to be a hybrid vehicle, but that doesn't mean that it's not for the effort. So we do appreciate that information and to hear about this equipment. Why don't we see if there's public comment on this before we go to the vote? Council, I don't see any requests for public comment on this. I'm gonna leave it open just a moment longer. We'll close it. Any other comments or questions? City Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Gabriel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
yes,
Schuster,
Yes.
Cumby,
yes,
Harrington, absent. Schmeckel,
Yes.
Somerville,
yes,
Pierce,
yes,
and Weaver.
Yes,
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent.
that motion carries. Thank you very much, everybody. Next up is item number 13, Councilmember Schmeckel.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to award the bid for the wastewater line rehab project, Sully and Canby, 3rd and 4th Alley, to Big Hunks Excavation Incorporated in the amount of $82,235, along with contingency of $12,335.25, for a total amount not to exceed $94,570.25, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
second,
Second from Vice Mayor Pierce. Thank you very much. Introduction on this item will be Mr. Webb.
I'm still here.
Yes, sir.
Honorable Mayor, City Council. So earlier this year, we received a development proposal at this block. And as part of that review, Public Works looks to see if they have water sewer capacity in the area. When we went out, we looked at the manholes in that area, and the downstream manhole was nearing capacity. And so we ran the camera down the line, and we found that it was at capacity because the line was cracked and was taking on groundwater. So we got under design with this project, kind of fast tracked it, and we're ready to get it done. So the development they're currently building is a car wash that's going in, and so this will directly serve the car wash and really the entire area. The main that goes through that alley serves that entire area there, and then downstream it actually feeds into the brand new C line. So this will really clean up that area as far as sewer line goes. We went out to bid on the project. We got 2 bidders. Big Hunks Excavation was the low bidder. They're actually already working on site for that development project. So I think we got a decent price because we weren't necessarily having to pay mobilization fees and things like that because they're already there. So after we reviewed the big documents, everything looks good, and we are recommending award of this project to Big Hunks.
Council members, questions or comments? Good to hear that projects can still be fast tracked in this environment with some of the other challenges that we've got going on. So that's positive news. Let's see if there's public comment on it. Council, I have no request for public comment on that item, so I'll send it back to you one more time. City Clerk, may I have a roll call vote?
Somerville,
yes,
Schuster,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
yes,
Harrington, absent. Gabriel,
Yes.
and Cumby, or
yes,
Pierce,
yes,
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you very much. That motion carries. Item number 14, Councilmember Cumby.
Yes, I move to approve amendment number 3 to the 2021 Priority Sewer Design Project Professional Agreement with Solterra Engineering for construction services on the wastewater line rehab, Canby 3rd and 4th project in the amount of $16,200, along with contingency of $1,620 for a total not to exceed $17,820 and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Schmeckel. Motion and a second by Councilmember Schmeckel. And final encore, I think, for this agenda for Mr. Webb. Go ahead, sir.
Honorable Mayor, City Council. So Solterra Engineering here in Laramie is the company that designed the project that you previously awarded. And we are asking now to amend their current agreement so that they can complete the construction services and construction management on the job.
Thank you. Questions or comments on this one? We'll open public comment then. Seeing no requests for public comment, we'll close it. Council, I'll invite you again for any questions or comments you might have. Seeing none, City Clerk, I'd ask you for a roll call.
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington, absent. O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
That motion carries. Thank you very much. Next up on our agenda is item number 15. And I'd like to recognize Vice Mayor Pierce.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve resolution 2022-63, transferring unencumbered or unexpended appropriations balances from one fund to another and amending appropriations for the fiscal year 2021-2022 annual budget of the city of Laramie, Wyoming, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
There's a motion and a second from Councilmember Schuster. And joining us for the background on this item is Director Wade. Welcome back.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Councilors. I have the pleasure of presenting for your consideration this evening 3 budget amendments. The first amendment is a resolution to adjust appropriations in fiscal year 2022, and I hope and expect this to be the last amendment of fiscal year 2022. The recommended amendment this evening is $10,625,279. Now, of that amount, you have already approved through council action $8,926,304, which leaves us with $1,698,975 in increases that we'll be going over in detail this evening. Now, how that breaks out is as follows. In the governmental funds, we're recommending an amendment of $248,975. In the enterprise funds, we're recommending total amendments of $8,926,304, all in the water fund for projects, all of which you've already approved. And wrapping it up, in the internal service fund, our health insurance fund, we're recommending an amendment of $1,450,000. Now, in the general fund, for items you have not already seen, in the Animal Control Division, we're recommending a $9,800 increase for the installation of dog kennel pads that were actually paid for by some Animal Shelter Foundation funds. So we have the funding on hand and we're expending it out for an item that was not previously budgeted. In the EMS Division, we're recommending a $127,175 increase for spending in overtime that was greater than the forecasted amount because of the amount of injuries our fire shift employees have experienced this year and the need to have holdover manning to fill those shifts. Now, thankfully, as you know, we executed an MOU with the county for ambulance services this last year, and there is additional revenue of $112,500 to offset the majority of this increase. We are also recommending an amendment in fire operations of $20,000 to account for some overspending on equipment expenditures. The division is not over, but in total, their operating accounts need adjustment. And in the Public Works Administration Division, we're also recommending a $20,000 adjustment for some health insurance costs that came in greater than the budgeting forecast. And just want to remind you how that works for a minute, because it can be a little confusing. when we do the payroll budget forecast, what we're actually doing is we're taking a picture of the employees and the benefits that are in effect at that time. And so during the year, if say an employee changes from single coverage to family coverage, it actually costs a fair amount more for the city, and it's an obligated cost. And so in small divisions like the Public Works Administration division with a couple of employees, these cases can actually result in the need to amend the budget, and that's actually what we're doing here. Now, moving on from the general fund, we're recommending a $30,000 increase in the E911 fund. This increase is necessary because the actual cost for maintenance agreements is coming in higher than our forecasted amount. As you know, the LARC division actually converted their major software product a couple of years ago. And as you convert those products, you actually phase in and out of new maintenance agreements. And so we were just a little bit off with our forecast, and we need to adjust that budget. In the Recreation Center Fund, we're recommending a $42,000 increase for some additional personnel spending, which is actually funded by a reduction in a general fund division. And so we're moving money around from another recreation division and taking it to the rec center. I believe that the council is aware of the staffing challenges the recreation center had in this past year, and that's actually what you're seeing in this budget amendment. And finally, wrapping up the amendment, we are recommending an adjustment to the health insurance fund of $1,450,000 based on our experience for claims in the past year. What we saw is maybe what a lot of employers saw, which is people who deferred care during the pandemic actually getting care and our claims being smaller, and so not offset by as much stop loss revenue. I think Malia would like to add something here. She's also going to speak on the next amendment too, so I'll stop and let her add anything she'd want to say.
Yes, Mayor and Council. Just wanted to address the health insurance fund, and we are a self-insured fund. The self-insurance fund, we have seen the claims. Normally we have stop loss, which is over 100,000. So a lot of the claims are usually higher and we get reimbursed. What has happened in the last year and continuing to happen is that our claim costs are under the 100,000. We have a lot more claims, and our balance in our health insurance fund for at the end of this 22 year, beginning of July, and the reason why we had to increase our claims dropped our fund almost $1 million. So based on that, we really needed to increase the amount of funding for our claims to cover the cost of the increasing cost in health insurance. So that is kind of what these amendments are about. And the next one literally is just having to adjust some of the cost per each individual, which I can go in on the next amendment. So if you have any questions about the health insurance fund, I'll be happy to address it on this one or the next amendment for you.
Why don't we reserve questions for when the next amendment comes forward?
Okay.
Appreciate that background information. It's unfortunate to hear.
Thank you.
So Honorable Mayor, with that, I think that completes my presentation of this budget amendment. I just want to remind the council and any members of the public that may be watching that we do disclose detail for every recommended amendment in the council meeting materials. And we focus our presentation on items the council has not already approved just for expediency's sake. But I do want to just let any members of the public know that that information is available, and remind the council that it's also available to you all the way down to each funding source. So thank you.
Thank you. And maybe we'll add also for information's sake that those materials just referenced can be accessed through the City Council's Agenda Center going back years, and obviously including for this meeting this evening as well. Questions or comments, except for those that we've reserved for presentation on the next item? I think we heard a pretty thorough explanation. We'll see if there's public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, Council, I'll return it to you for any further comments or questions you may have. And seeing none, I'd ask the city clerk to read a roll call vote.
All right. Harrington, absent. O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. That motion carries. Council, that'll take us to our next agenda item. Item number 16, and I will call on Vice Mayor Pierce again.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I move that we approve Resolution 2022-64, amending appropriations for the fiscal year 2023-2024 biennium budget of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Second.
And second from Councilmember Schuster Barely. And welcome back, Director Wade.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. City Councilors, this amendment is actually recommended for fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 24 because we are thankfully adopting a biennium budget again. What we have done is we've actually carved out a recommended amendment for health insurance. So employer cost of employee health insurance that actually came in after all of our budgetary numbers have been finalized for last fiscal year. The recommended amendment for the biennium is $191,802 in each year, funded by cash reserves in each fund, and the fund breakout is as follows. The general fund, $149,743, recreation center fund, $5,385, water fund, $15,000, wastewater fund, $12,226, and the solid waste fund for $9,448. You can see a division breakout for this amendment in your materials. I won't review that this evening because frankly, we compile it based on the forecasted positions and the benefits in effect, and there's really nothing of significance to it. And at this time, I'll turn it over to COO Brown for more information about why this amendment is necessary. Sorry for that choppiness.
Oh, that's okay.
The last group that's going to be critical about choppiness are the members of this city council. COO Brown, thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, Council. This is for 23 and 24 budget. Based on the trend of what's going on with the claims, we increased our claim costs by 10%, which is why we need budget amendment going forth. We may need more budget amendment or review our health insurance going forward. I don't think it's getting any better. So we need to adopt. It's just as Jennifer said, it's based on positions and who had what type of health insurance. So based on that, that's what the numbers are representing, but it's all overall a rate increase of 10% in our claim cost portion.
Thank you very much. Questions for Chief Operating Officer? Yes, Councilmember O'Doherty.
I just want a reminder because I worked for the federal government and the state and now with the city, just the fiscal year. So that's the one that started July. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
And 2 years from this past July. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? I feel obligated to ask this question, which is this. Is there anything at a policy level that the city council needs to be working with the staff on so that we can better plan for this situation moving forward?
I don't think we need a policy decision, Mayor. I do believe that we just need to look at maybe checking in with options with our health insurance, which actually I had talked to the city manager, Janine, and we have discussed some options, and I was going to talk to her tomorrow when we have our meeting. So I think we have some options going forward where we can kind of take the risk out of the city's hands and do something different, but we're just exploring that at this point.
Understood. City manager, if I can follow up on that just briefly with you, and of course being mindful of HIPAA and all related things. Is this a trend that we're seeing, to the best of your knowledge, that municipal governments are struggling with nationwide? Is it related to COVID, where we're having an aggregate of smaller claims? that are creating this burden for us?
Mayor and Council, I think that's a really great question, and I think the answer to what I heard is kind of three question areas for all
Sorry.
three areas is yes. No, that's okay. We have seen a lot of utilization in our health insurance fund. And I do believe, and I think it is a fair statement, that some of that is maybe pent up demand that was pent up throughout the pandemic, where people were deferring healthcare and deferring treatment in some cases, where they could, and delaying that literally because providers in some cases weren't available, as we all know. So I do think we're seeing a spike in utilization of our healthcare, which is probably a good thing, right? And that's why we have that for our staff. Whether that will taper off or not is an entirely other question that is sort of what Malia and myself are talking with the city's health insurance fund about. As Malia said, we are a self-insured entity. We have an employee committee where employees elect representatives to serve on that committee to operate that self-insurance fund and hopefully in perpetuity and at a reasonable rate that employees can afford and at reasonable coverages. But we are seeing other neighboring municipalities having similar experience, and I think you all probably see that, as do members of the public, in the news, talking about this being an issue across the country. So I don't think the city of Laramie is unique, and I do think the pandemic is part of what has caused us to be here. The problem is the uncertainty moving forward and being sure that we have done everything we can to maintain that coverage for our employees, which, as we all know, is absolutely essential and important, but also to minimize the risk for the city.
Thank you, City Manager.
The city being the employer, right?
Right.
In this case, yes.
Thank you very much. And yes, you addressed every point of my multi-part question, and I do appreciate it. And I'm going to go now to the council for other questions and commentary. Vice Mayor Pierce.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm wondering if we've looked into potential demographic changes in terms of our staff, age, childbearing, younger, I don't know. I mean, do we watch that closely to see if any of that has changed?
I think that's a great question. We do have a benefit consultant that the city retains who can look at trends like that and allows for those trends to be looked at in a way that does preserve the privacy, the medical privacy of our employees. So not information that myself or Malia would be privy to, or Jennifer or anybody, but an outsourced third party. I can't say that I can speak to your question, give you a lot of data, Councilor Pierce and other members of council, on that. But as Malia mentioned early on in the conversation, we have seen our stop loss be affected, meaning we are having some folks in our pool of insured persons who are having very serious and long-term, likely costly medical expenses. But fortunately, we do have the stop loss, which is, I always describe it as we have insurance on our insurance, right? So when we see those costly claims, we can minimize our risk to some degree. And Malia, do you want to add anything on the demographic issues? I'll be candid, Councilor Pierce, we have a pretty, when you look at certain areas of the city, they're very young. And I'm going to sort of mention public safety. Our public safety professionals are about half of our workforce, and they do tend to be maybe younger than would be the average age in the other half of our more traditional government employee pool that is non-public safety. So overall, I think it probably balances out, and it's not a graying of the workforce issue that you see sometimes like in the federal government. Malia, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, Councilor Pierce, through you, Mayor. I don't think it's much as demographic as just people putting off a lot of their medical during the COVID time. There's a lot of medical procedures that are under the 100,000, but they're high, so we've seen a lot more claims than what we had in the past. So, and then the claims that we are seeing is not over 100,000. It was over 100,000. We collected, if you have a big claim of 500,000, we get 400,000 back. We would pay it, but we would get reimbursed by stop loss. And so what we're seeing is there's a lot of claims going on under the 100,000. That is more utilization than we ever have. And I think part of it was for COVID and people not getting to even do the elective surgeries and the things that they couldn't do at that time because they were closed down. So that's part of it. So with that is what happened to our medical in the 1 year of, the claim cost. And because of that, the 22 was what needed to be budgeted, and we needed to increase our rates. So that's where we're at. I don't really believe it's a demographic issue, but just because we have kind of a similar workforce, I don't think our workforce has changed that much. However, I do feel that we do have some options we can look at and maybe provide different health insurance or other options to employees. And that's what we need to talk about with Janine and some other new HR Patty and some other people, and maybe go to the health insurance funds people and try to really establish what is the best for the city and also our staff.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? We'll check for public comment on this item. Seeing no requests for public comment, we'll close the public comment period. Staff, I think the city council is aware of the challenge that this is, because it's kind of a two-part challenge. One is to maintain and provide these services for the city staff so that we have a healthy workforce for the city of Laramie. And of course, two, always is trying to control those healthcare costs as much as possible, which is, something I think a lot of organizations struggle with, and we wouldn't be immune to that. So that's why I asked that question earlier, if there were anything, actions at a policy level, although it does, of course, occur to me that might be pretty limited. But I think this council recognizes that it's part of our responsibility to work with the staff and assist you if those come up. And I think future city councils would feel the same way. It's a big challenge that I think, any organization that's providing those benefits is probably looking at. But I appreciate the answers. I always feel more informed after we talk to you about these things, and we wish you the best coming up with some solutions for it. And happy to hear that there's a good, strong input process for our employees on those committees as well. Maybe you all can work on some solutions. And seeing no further comments or questions, I'll go to the city clerk for a roll call vote on the item.
Cumby,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Harrington, absent, Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
That motion carries. Thank you, city clerk and council members. And we'll now move on to item number 17 in our agenda. I'd like to call on council member Schuster.
Thank you very much. The title is Resolution 2022-65, Budget Amendments for the Fiscal Year 2023 and Fiscal Year 2024. I move to approve Resolution 2022-65, transferring unencumbered or unexpended appropriation balances from one fund to another and amending appropriations for the fiscal year 23 and 24 biennial budget of the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
Motion and a second from council member O'Doherty, and we'll welcome Director Wade back for background explanation.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and City Council. The final amendment for your consideration this evening will amend the fiscal year 2023 and 2024 biennium budget if you approve it this evening. We are recommending an increase in fiscal year 2023 of $7,284,627. Of this amount, you have only not approved $406,092. So the majority of this amendment are things you've already seen. And the dollar amount is what it is because of some large capital project amendments that the council has approved lately, which I'm sure you all remember. So that's why these dollars are so big this time. In fiscal year 2024, we are recommending an amendment of $370,886, all of which has already been approved by council action. I'd like to verbally correct a typo in the budget memo for this item, which indicates none of which has been approved. That's not correct. You've actually seen all of this amount. And so kind of at the highest level for governmental funds, we're recommending an amendment of $857,592 in fiscal year 23, and in 24, an amendment of $1,500. And in the enterprise funds in 23, we're recommending an amendment of $6,427,035 in 23 and $369,386 in 2024. $6 million of that amendment in enterprise funds is for the overage on the North Side Tank and Transmission Line project that the council is aware of. And so that popped up in our 2022 amendment and then the reappropriation into 2023. So I'd like to just take a moment and point that out. That's why we're dealing in such large dollars this evening. And as the council is aware, we are trying to secure additional funding through state revolving funds for the overage on that project. Now, for the general fund, for items you haven't already approved, in the Police Administration and Operation Division, we're recommending a rebudget of $85,000 for mobile radio replacements that were ordered last fall and just haven't gotten here because of delivery delays that we've all been experiencing. So we're going to reappropriate funds between years. In engineering, we're requesting a $3,755 increase so that engineering can, rather than trading in a vehicle, transfer it to the Parks Division where the city feels for $3,755 that it will get much better use by extending the life. And so engineering will pay a little bit more out of pocket so that the Parks Division can retain this vehicle and use it. You'll also see a sister amendment in the Parks Division for the same amount. In the Streets Division, we're actually recommending a decrease of $46,991 to swap out the replacement schedule of two large equipment items, a paint machine and a snow blower. One was budgeted in the current year, one in 25, and based on the recommendation of the Fleet Committee, they'd like to swap them out, and so the city will experience a small cost savings because one was cheaper than the other. And finally, in the IT division, we're recommending a $23,115 rebudget between fiscal years due to delayed equipment. Moving on to the E911 fund, we're recommending an increase of $319,458 to replace our aging 911 phone system. Now, the police chief actually let the city manager and the budget team know that this amendment might be coming at the very end of last budget cycle, but he was still developing the cost estimates, so we wanted to have really good numbers. And so we were aware that this might be coming because he knew that the 911 phone system needed to be replaced. We have a good cost in hand. And what we plan to do is partially finance this purchase with lease purchase financing, just so we can amortize the cost out for this fund. So we are forecasting that we'll finance $219,458 of this purchase and pay for $100,000 of it with cash reserves. In the Recreation Center Fund, we're recommending an amendment of $18,000 for an emergency generator repair. This generator has some control board issues, and staff suspect a lightning strike or a power surge is the culprit, and they don't have enough budget right now to go ahead and go on with this repair because it is rather costly. And that is actually it in terms of the new items for this amendment. At this time, I'd love to open it up for any questions you might have.
Thank you. I wonder, Director Wade, given the dollar amounts involved here, if we might not have an amendment to reflect your verbal correction. I think that probably seems appropriate. And I think in the past, we've been advised that we do need to do those things. And so I think it would be helpful and I would suspect necessary to do that. I wonder if you might phrase that for us again, and we'll have one of the Agile council members make a motion to amend that so that it reflects it.
So, Honorable Mayor, there's absolutely no problem with the resolution or the numbers presented in the resolution at all. There is simply a typo in the memo.
Okay, just the memo.
Council, yeah, it is just in the memo disclosures.
Right.
There's no need, but thank you so much for bringing that up.
No, that's great. I missed it earlier when it was just in the memo.
Yes.
Sometimes those things happen when there's a lot of paperwork to get processed and prepared for our
Yes.
meetings. It's a problem. Council members, any other questions or comments for Director Wade on these amendments? Once again, I think the explanation has probably preempted most of those, which we do appreciate. We'll see if there's public comment. And I don't see a request for public comment, so we'll close the public comment period on this item. Council, I'll give you a last chance before we go to the vote. City Clerk, could you please read a roll call vote on this item?
Cumbie,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington is absent. O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. That motion carries. And we appreciate the thorough explanations and the opportunity to ask some questions about those items. Next up, we've got item number 18. I'm going to call on our Councilmember Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. The title is a new bar and grill liquor license. I would move that the city council approve the application for a new bar and grill liquor license number BG-12 for San Luis Mexican Restaurant, doing business as San Luis Mexican Restaurant, located at 110 Ivanson Avenue, Laramie, Wyoming, for the licensing term October 19th of 2022 through May 7th of 2023. Authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Second from Council Member Cumbie. Thank you. Motion and a second. The City Clerk for background on the item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the application before you is for San Luis Mexican Restaurant. The number will be BG-12. This will be your 8th bar and grill license that we will have issued. They originally submitted an application for a restaurant liquor license, but withdrew that application because they wanted to utilize a bar area kind of in the middle of their restaurant. The applicants have numerous years of experience working in restaurants and within a bar location as well. The bar and grill license needs to maintain the 60% food sales to alcohol, similar to like the restaurant. They are not allowed to sell or serve any alcohol for off-premise consumption. And the time the food sales end is also when the alcohol sales need to end as well. So that is the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. period where they cannot be open to serve alcohol. The liquor division has certified that this application is complete, and I am here for any questions that anyone might have.
Questions for the City Clerk on this application for the bar and grill license? I appreciate that the City Clerk mentioned the hours, the 2 a.m., 6 a.m., because I think being smart business people, these folks have opted to go with a business plan that has some late night hours given their location and everything, but it looks like they have worked in those closing times also into their plans. Why don't we see if I don't see any hands up or popping up or comments, we'll see if there's public comment on this item. We'll open that up. I don't see any requests for public comment on this item. I would like to recognize Councilmember O'Doherty.
I have a comment that it's lovely. The remodel is very nice, Mexican tiles. It's really beautiful. So I encourage people to check it out. Thanks.
I appreciate that comment. Other comments? I'll just make a quick one. It's that, of course, we're really glad to see a business come in and put a lot of investment into fixing up a prominent location downtown, and they seem to be doing very well. And of course, we wish them the best of luck, and we hope that everything works out for them and that the business does really well and thrives. And it looks like so far it's doing great. We're happy for them, and we wish them the best. City Clerk, will you read a roll call vote for this item?
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Harrington is absent. Schuster,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you. And that motion carries, which will take us to our next agenda item, item number 19. And I'm going to call on Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance number 2051, amending multiple sections within Title 15 of the Laramie Municipal Code for the purposes of updating definitions, uses, dimensions in city code as a standard practice, as recommended by the Planning Commission on second reading in accordance with findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second.
A motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce. And I believe we've got Mr. Teeny for background, or is it Mr. Shahidi, or both?
Honorable Mayor, Council, it is Mr. Shahidi right now. For whatever reason, my video on my computer is not working, so you'll have to do this without a video, or I will have to do so.
I hear you loud and clear, sir, so go right ahead.
Perfect. So this is the second reading of the ordinance that was brought up 2 weeks ago, making some fairly routine changes to Section 15 of the UDC. This usually comes about once a year. Throughout our interactions with various patrons, we notice that there's issues with the code, things that don't quite line up due to changes the previous year, or for other reasons just hasn't been caught since the UDC was ratified. And so we are now going back and changing some of those things. You'll see that there's about 15 of those, of which we went through most of them last time. As you saw earlier in the meeting, we did hold a public hearing, and there was no comments there. However, we did get a written letter from Mr. Brett Glass asking us to make some changes to notifications associated with these text amendments, asking us to put more, to put it into writing and sending it out to people. I will say that's not something that we are bringing forward at this time, mostly due to the fact that there's a lot of other sections that will have to be changed in order to make that one change in table 15.06-1. So yeah, other than that, we did send it out for public comment, and it did go to the boomerang. And yeah, I'm here for any other questions.
Any other questions for our Mr. Sheedy? Let's see if there's public comment on this item. Mr. Sheedy, I have a question. I'm going to close public comment. I saw no request for public comment. I have a question about this public notice suggestion that you discussed with us, and how at this time it's not being brought forward because of needed changes to the other tables. I wonder if there are some other solutions that we might that we might pursue with regard to public notice on that could maybe meet some of those concerns without causing the disruption of the amendment in the table. And I guess my question is just that I think the council would be interested in hearing from you folks at a future date about maybe some possibilities. And the reason I mention that is that it is true that the circulation of the newspaper is not what it once was. Not speaking to any other aspects of quality of local news, but simply the circulation is somewhat different in that it's mailed. I don't know that mailing out notices would be any more timely or effective than people simply receiving the notice in their newspaper also mailed to them. I'm not sure how another mailing would address that, but I wonder if some thought might be given to some other options for notification to folks when these things come up. I see the city manager's turned on camera, so city manager, if you'd like to speak to that question, I'd be interested in your thoughts.
Absolutely. Mayor, I don't necessarily want to get into specifics tonight, but I will let you know that myself and the assistant city manager and the planning manager have had correspondence about the cost of some of the suggestions that we've heard and the practicality of it. And so we certainly would be happy to talk with you about that more at a future date.
Yeah, that seems appropriate without getting into specifics, because my question's pretty general as well. It just seems like something that with some thought and creativity, maybe there might be some ways to address those concerns that might be more cost effective and practical. I appreciate that.
I guess I would just add that, we public notice as the way the statutes have typically used it does say, providing notice to the public, not necessarily to all 34,000 individual members of the public on every occasion. And so that's the struggle that we have. Is there is certainly an expectation, I think, amongst some members of the public that they should personally, on an individual level, receive a notice of every change to municipal code or whatever it may be that the city is doing that is of interest to them. And I do appreciate that, right? Because information is so easy for everybody to get these days. But that's not the statutory requirement. It's certainly the goal of staff to reach as many people as we can. And I believe that's probably shared by the elected officials on city council. So for that reason, we typically will send out notices, not just to the public in the traditional sense, like in the newspaper, which has been for 150 years, the way we've satisfied the public notice requirement. But years and years ago, a couple decades ago, we started also putting those notices out on the city's website, recognizing internet technology, right? We do email blasts, we do Facebook messaging, we use social media. So we've tried to expand in ways that do reach out more to individual citizens and not that broad context of the public, but there's always room for improvement. So we can take a look at that.
I appreciate that, city manager. And my question wasn't prompted out of a sense of any criticism. I was just thinking more towards what we read in that public comment. But it sounds like some of those things, of course, are already being done. Those things are available on the city website and things of that nature. But I appreciate that there could also be some work to think about some other ways to get that out that you mentioned. And yeah, I think we'd look forward to the staff letting us know to come up with some things, and we'd like to hear about it. Councilmember Cumby, thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, City Manager. I actually was going to ask a question that you wound up answering, and that is that those notices are published on the website, in the city's newsletter, and in other ways through social media. And I just would encourage individuals of the public to make sure that you sign up for the city newsletter, where announcements are routinely sent out, and it would be kind of an easier way for people to try to keep up on some of our busy projects that we work on. So I encourage people to sign up for the newsletter, to check in to our website for the current news. because it is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Cumby. City Clerk, I have a question for you. If you're a member of the public and you want to stay abreast of text amendments to code like this, where do you go on the city website? Where can you check in on the city website to get that information?
So we've had the notify me, so you can sign up and get notified that a new city council agenda's been published or minutes have been added. We also have the city news flash that, again, staff can put the information out there, and it goes out onto our public TV channel as well. It kind of gives out some information and just kind of, if anyone just calls our office, we're more than happy to provide additional information as well.
Thank you, City Clerk. So if you're a citizen, member of the public out there, and you're interested in amendments, changes to the UDC, those are going to be reflected, of course, in things like our agenda publications, and I think it's worth mentioning that these types of amendments, of course, are going to have 3 readings. So there's going to be a 2-week period in between each of those readings, and those will all be reflected in those same information sources that you mentioned. And I think it's probably worth just going over that when we have a discussion around this kind of topic. Mr. Keeney, I'll go to you, and I'll go to you next, City Manager, because I think you had input, but I'll go to Mr. Keeney. Go ahead, Mr. Keeney.
Mayor, Council, I was just going to add on to what Ryan Schufelt had mentioned. The Notify Me also exists for Planning Commission agendas as well. And so before this even reaches you, anyone who's interested in knowing what's going to be before Planning Commission, which this does go before Planning Commission, would be notified as well through that process and the agenda process there. So just wanted to add that on there so it was clear. Thanks.
No, I think that's thank you, Mr. Cheney. I think that's a good point of clarity. And of course, the thrust of the conversation here is just to address that if there's an interest in that information, it's likely there. These things come before a planning commission agenda, and there's notice before that. And then of course, there's going to be notice of the discussion and the agenda items in those 2-week increments before it ever comes to the city council as well. So there are lengthy opportunities if you utilize those tools to stay abreast of what's going on in terms of code changes. And that's okay to review where that information can be found and at what times and over what intervals. City Manager, thanks for waiting. Do you have some other input on that?
Mayor, I was actually going to mention Planning Commission, as did Mr. Taney, but a reference as well for council, and more maybe importantly for the public, on the cover sheet that you receive every time you get any kind of item, including any kind of text or code change, at the very bottom of it, we do show a history of critical dates, right? And so, for instance, I'm looking at the cover sheet for this item, and it tells you that this item went to Planning Commission on September 26th, which means it was advertised 2 weeks prior to the 26th, then it occurred on the 26th. Then it will tell you the date we began advertising for the multiple public hearings and public comment opportunities as part of adopting an ordinance change. And so it shows you advertising started on October 1st. It'll also tell you if there were any previous work session dates where there was an opportunity for the public to learn or comment. So there's a nice sort of history at the bottom of those sheets. Where people would know like how to go back and research what the Planning Commission did, what they looked at, what the substance of their conversation and motions was, and then also monitor the notices and advertisements for all of your meetings and for the public process of adopting the ordinance in front of.
Thank you, City Manager. To echo a council member's comments from a previous meeting, there's a lot of tools that are available, and the city expends a lot of effort to make sure that information is available. If people use that information or not, and those tools is a choice that they make. That's the choice that they're making, because there is extensive effort on the part of the city to make sure that information is publicly available well ahead of time. Councilmember Cumby. Oh,
thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question would be, if I'm a citizen and I have a full-time job and a part-time job and 3 kids at home in school, etc. And I want the easiest, best way to get this information because I don't necessarily have time to get on the website and dig. Would I be able to get that through the news flash or through Notify Me? I mean, is there one way where a person can get a message or an email where they don't have to be quite so proactive, that the information comes to them and all they have to do is read their email or text messages or whatever?
Who are you directing that question towards, Councilmember Cumby? Maybe
Anybody who has the answer.
or wants to take a crack at it. I had Mr. Shahidi, I think, up wanting to weigh in on that. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Councilmember Cumby, I can answer that question. I have signed up myself for the Notify Me, and I get it both on my cell phone and on my email. And so you can specify on the Notify Me what method works best for you. And you can also specify which councils, commissions you want the information on specifically and which ones you do not want the information on. So you can really tailor it to exactly what you need.
Thank you very much. That was informative. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilmember Cumby. Vice Mayor Pierce, thanks for waiting.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. My comment or question was exactly that of Councilor Cumby. So thank you.
Council, I think it's okay to spend a little bit of time on our discussion like this because it's important, and I think it's always in our interest as the city government, the local government in Laramie, to review what we do have available for members of the public and interested folks that want that information and all the different channels that it's available from, because it gets back to something that I think we recognize, which is that there's a pretty heavy interest on the part of city government to make sure that that information is available in a timely fashion for folks that are interested in things that city government's doing. And I think you'll also find that's true of the school board and the county commission as well. But I also appreciate the question about what's a good strategy to find a digestible and convenient form of that. And I'm glad that we got a little bit of an answer there too. And there's a little bit of a customization ability too. So there are some tools that if people can use those, they may find that some of these questions could be answered without a lot of work on their part. But I think it was a good discussion. Any other points of interest? Will one of the council members please remind me if we've opened this for public comment? Because I don't remember. Okay, thank you, City Clerk. Well, City Clerk, I'd ask you to read a roll call vote on this.
Schmeckel.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Harrington, absent. Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
And Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent.
Thank you. That motion carries. Once again, I appreciate the thoughts and discussion around it. We've got item number 20 next, and I'm going to call on Councilmember O'Doherty.
I move to approve original ordinance 2041, amending Laramie Municipal Code, Chapter 10.32, bicycles, to update language to reflect current device uses on second reading.
Second.
Second from Vice Mayor Pierce. Motion and a second. Thank you. Assistant City Manager Fieser, welcome back.
Thanks, Mayor. And first off, hold the applause that we finally got back to you guys on second reading after so many delays. Hold the applause, Councilor Gabriel. As you know, we brought this in, I believe it might have been February of 2022, to make changes related to the bicycle ordinance, to change it to include devices that we are seeing throughout the community, whether it's scooters or assisted mobility devices, electric bikes, all the different mixes. At that time, council had asked us to take it to Traffic Safety Commission, which we did, and we collected a lot of input. And just due to staff load, we ended up having some trouble getting it completed and get it back to Traffic Safety Commission, which we were able to do on October 13th. We had a good discussion with Traffic Safety Commission, and although they don't really take a vote, I took the impression from Traffic Safety Commission that they were supportive of the changes we'd made and were comfortable with the ordinance as presented tonight. We are asking for a substitution by amendment, and I'll probably let you, maybe we should go to that motion first and then talk about the substitution by amendment when we get there.
Thank you. Yeah, that's probably the right protocol. Councilmember O'Doherty.
I move to amend by substitution by replacing original ordinance 2041 with original ordinance number 2041A.
Second.
Motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce. Okay, and we'll throw it back to you, Assistant City Manager.
Thanks, Honorable Mayor. And what we have, if you look in the 2041A that was substituted, it includes most of the changes, but really what was easiest for me to do was to accept the track changes, because far and wide, a lot of the comments were simply because track changing is sometimes hard to, how do you want to say, digest when you see the mark throughs and the different colors and the different pieces. But, you know, a few places that we really had some interesting changes were about the restriction on riding as far to the right and the requirement to use bicycle lanes, which I'll agree, some of our bicycle lanes do have danger areas, whether it's the door swing area or a place where a water meter might be low and it's a little bit bumpy. And what we changed that to was an encouragement to utilize or to stay as far to the right or utilize the pathways when it's safe. A lot of people also ride their bikes at a speed much greater than you like to see on a shared use pathway when they're using it for commuter purposes. So really, if you have a shared use path and you have a lane that could be used for commuter purposes, for those people that are riding, you know, upwards of 20 miles an hour, I'd rather they were on the roadway instead of on the pathway. And those are some of the general changes we made. Again, my thanks to the Traffic Safety Commission for the work that they put in, the comments from Laramie BikeNet. And then we've still got a little bit of work to do. One of the things that I realized that I missed was that I'll see probably in another change, unfortunately, is some limitation to how you park, and that it's the device operator's responsibility to park the device in a way so it doesn't obstruct pedestrians or vehicles in the manner that you park it. And we're working on language with the engineering department to bring back to City Council on third and final reading, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. But with that being said, I will answer any questions that you guys may have.
Appreciate that, Assistant City Manager. It looks like our first question is from Councilmember O'Doherty.
I just want to let people know that our Traffic Safety Committee really went through this with the fine-tooth comb. They had a lot of other suggestions, but it was kind of beyond the scope of what this ordinance was trying to do. But I really appreciate how there's so many Traffic Safety Commission, so it was nice to see that that Chair Sindelar is with us, so she might have some comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. I appreciate what he said about getting them to park in a non-obstructive way. The church I go to is within a couple blocks of the university, and they keep putting on the sidewalk leading up to the front door. And I do not like that. Several times I see them laying down on the sidewalk, which makes the obstruction really good. And I hate to say I'm talking about the bird scooters, but I do not support them. I'm a bicyclist myself. I love riding the trails. I think our river trail is phenomenal. I love it, doing the loop and everything, try to get as many miles in as I can a day, and think that's fantastic, but not thrilled on the bird scooters at all. They pull out in traffic, they ride on the sidewalks when they're not supposed to. I can't support it. I'll say yes to the bicycles and no to the bird scooters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Schuster. Other questions and comments? I would also point out, you know, I'm looking through this on the in our documents that were included, and I see it's also for gas powered, I think, motor assisted scooters and bicycles under what was it under the 50 cc's, and I'm starting to see more of those too in town than I used to, and I'm fine with those too. Those aren't really super common, but I'm seeing more of them. And I was going to ask a question, but it's all spelled out in our supplementary materials and about what the specifications for that and how they were included, electric and motor assisted bicycles, and then the gas powered is addressed. It's under 50 cc's. Councilmember Schuster, did you have another comment you wanted to throw in there?
What you were just talking about, they used to call it a moped.
Yeah.
Which is a motor assisted pedal bike. And a lot of people try to bring these little, I call them pocket scooters.
Mm-hmm.
Those are not legal. It has to be a motor assisted pedal bike. And I get challenged on that every year on what's legal and what's not. It is written very well, too. And that has been legal for 50 years to have a motor assisted pedal bike under 50 cc, just like you stated.
And that makes me want to ask another question, Assistant City Manager. So somebody that has a gas powered moped, like the council member says, that is under that 50 cc's, they're not really covered in that because that's not the same thing as an assisted bicycle. They would need to be operating that on the city streets and following those traffic regulations. Is that right?
Honorable Mayor.
If it isn't pedal, a hybrid between pedal and gas motor.
Honorable Mayor, I'd have to defer to Officer Smith, who's not with us tonight, and I'm certainly happy to do that and have an answer for you on third reading.
And maybe it isn't necessary. The line of discussion just made me think about it now, but I think Councilmember Schuster said basically if it's not also a pedal-powered device, that is the case, but that seems relevant to this discussion just to make sure that we're all on the same page. I appreciate it. Other questions about the electric and assisted bicycles and the new regulations? Okay. Assistant City Manager, I also want to point out, I think the council's understanding of the fact that there were a couple of layers to this and a couple of processes, and we wanted to make sure there was plenty of time for input and discussion at all the different points in time. And, these things are increasing in popularity. People are using the bird scooters all over town. I see more of the gas assisted motor bicycles, electric bicycles, all kinds of these things. I think we're all for it, but we probably need to keep up with the times too. So, council members, how about I see if there's some comment? I know that Councilmember Adority mentioned that our Traffic Safety Commission chair was here, and we want to certainly recognize anyone from traffic safety or who's been working on this. Yes, let's let Nancy Sindler in here, and thanks for hanging in there with us tonight till we got to this item. Go ahead, Ms. Sindler, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. Yeah, it was a joy. This is the kind of stuff that I love doing with the TSC. It was a good process. There was a lot of input, a lot of public input. Chewed on it, spat it out, took the new stuff, chewed on it some more. I see a lot of changes are happening with transportation, including like birds and everything else, rollerblades. There's so many things trying to make this inclusive. We really sweated a lot on that. Let's see what I got here. I think it does a pretty good job. There's going to be some new form of transportation out next week. And hopefully this will cover it as wheeled things non-using your one foot in front of the other. At some point in the future, I'd like to see an examination with council and the TSC and possibly the environmental committee on looking at our infrastructure to make it because a lot of the issues that are safety are infrastructure issues, widths of streets, sharpness of corners, road hazards, width of lanes, all those kind of things. And I'd like to see us look at that sometime. It wasn't covered in this ordinance. It doesn't belong in this ordinance. but look at how we set up our town, because more and more of what is going on are these different ways of getting around. I mean, I remember when I got here 45 years ago, I was like the only person that rode a bike in the wintertime in Laramie. And now everything is out there all winter long, which is great. And because we're changing from using private cars. From today, I drove all over town today. I had appointments here, and there, and I was looking at infrastructure, bike infrastructure, while I'm driving the car, which is not the safest. But because I think we need to work on improving safety for all the folks, not just the car folks. If you know what I mean.
Yes, I think I do.
And I want to say, I want to compliment Mr. Fieser and everyone else in the city staff. I know it took a long time, but it was fun to do. It was a real challenge, and I enjoyed it. I can't speak for the others, but I can speak for myself and say it was a joy.
We appreciate that and appreciate your service on that, your longtime service on that committee for us, and your valuable insight as a longtime bike pedestrian. You and my old roommate, 0 degree bicycling. Do we have any questions for Nancy, since she's our chair of that committee? Before we move on, other than to say our thanks again? All right. Well, we do thank you.
You're welcome.
Assistant City Manager, the comments from Ms. Sindler just made me think about something else. I'm seeing more of these boards that have some sort of additional power source. And as I'm looking through this here, is that covered here? Is that going to be something we're going to need to take a look at in something else, Assistant City Manager?
Honorable Mayor, through you, I believe it comes under electric personal assistive mobility device, which is different than a
bicycle.
A mobility device. That's a self-balancing, non-tandem 1 or 2 wheel device. So it's the 1 wheel board, or I'm not sure how many of you seen I think it's an electric unicycle that's been in town. And that guy's doing 20, 25 miles an hour around town. But I believe that follows under that self-balancing, non-tandem 1 or 2 wheel device in my mind.
So we're not totally behind the times here with it. Okay, all right. We'll wait. We'll wait another month before they have to update this. But I think this gives a good framework for that, because as other things come along, it seems like they might be able to be incorporated in that. Thanks for answering that question. Let's see if there's any other public comment. I did have one other attendee, so I didn't want to not give them an opportunity. Seeing none. Council, follow-up thoughts, final thoughts or questions on this one? It's been a process, but probably a very worthwhile process, as we've been informed. I also agree with the sentiment that I think this is probably going to pick up. It's going to keep going. I think I'd like to get one of those little assisted pedal bikes, or maybe even a gas-powered one, because I think the emissions are pretty low, Councilmember O'Doherty. I don't think you're burning a lot of gas in those. All right, City Clerk, will you read a roll call vote for us?
Cumbie?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Harrington, absent. O'Doherty?
Yes.
Schmeckel?
Yes.
Schuster?
Take it how you want, but yes to bicycles, no to the bird scooters.
That's a yes. That's a yes.
Somerville?
Yes.
Pierce?
Yes.
And Weaver?
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent on the amendment to substitute.
Thank you. That motion carries. I like all those, but Councilmember Schuster, I'd rather have a Super Cub than one of those bird scooters any day. Let's see. I think up next we have public comment on non-agenda items. Oh, Councilmember
Point of
Schuster.
Order, you just did an amendment. We now have to vote on the motion.
Thank you very much for the point of order. City Clerk. Well, I guess actually procedurally, is there any other input, Council, on the amended motion? Okay, and then we'll see if there's public comment just real quick to stick with procedure. Thank you for the point of order. Okay, I'll close the public comment, seeing no request for public comment. And without any further input from the council, City Clerk, thank you.
Okay. Somerville,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes on the bicycles, no to the bird scooters.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Harrington, absent. Gabriel,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
and Weaver.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 no, and 1 absent.
And that motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, I don't think I've motored past anything now, so I think we need to go to public comment. I don't see any requests for public comment on non-agenda items, so we'll close the public comment period. Item number 22, council members, discussion, future work session topics, upcoming meetings. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There's been a concern, at least in the new Ward 2, I suspect, the new Ward 1, in terms of parking with university expansion and a pretty significant overcrowding of some of the neighborhoods closer to the university and parking on streets. And I'm wondering if there's any appetite for revisiting this discussion. I remember, quite some time ago now, we had a presentation when our previous city manager's assistant came up with a interesting plan that I think I actually voted no on, and now actually kind of regret, because it was pretty futuristic at that time, and I think now we might need to revisit some of Paula's, I don't know how many folks have been around, but remember some of Paula's recommendations. So if there is appetite for that, I think, given, I just think we might want to consider it, and I'm just wondering if any council members feel the same. I don't necessarily think this is incredibly urgent, but if we could have some discussion before academic year 2023 in the fall, it might be nice, if we thought about that.
Council members. Oh, sorry, Vice Mayor.
No, that's it.
Is there support or interest in revisiting the perennial topic? I see Councilmember Schuster. I'd raise mine, but I don't believe I'll be here. Councilmember Somerville, is that just a hand to say yes? Councilmember Schmeckel?
That's just a hand to say yes.
All right. So, City Manager, our favorite, and as I say, perennial topic. Do you have some input for us on this one?
No, I was just going to say, Mayor, if it is the will council to do that, I would actually recommend that we take that up maybe late November or in December. And the reason for that, of course, is that if we do want to make changes to our residential parking permitting program, if the council would go that direction, the sooner we could make the change by ordinance, then it gives staff adequate time to implement those changes. And last time we talked about it, we thought we would need to implement changes in the late winter, early spring, in order to give us sufficient time to be ready for the really big volume of enrollments that come with school starting in August and September.
Well, council, you heard it before the turkey leftovers are all gone. It sounds like we might touch on this topic. Councilmember Gabriel.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was just kind of curious. It might be maybe a better idea to kind of see how the parking garage takes up some of this parking congestion around campus when it comes online in January sometime. 375 or so spots, 40 allocated to students, and the rest will be allocated to the public. They're going to have some lower parking with meters. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that takes up some of that parking problem. But I certainly think there's a desire to take a look at parking. That's always been a concern for everybody around campus. But I'm kind of interested to see how this parking garage is going to work when it comes online in January.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. That's not a bad point. I think we're kind of in a jam based on what the city manager said, because if we do want to look at that, unfortunately, I don't see how the timelines match up super effectively. That's an unfortunate challenge. Vice Mayor, you still have your hand up. Did you want to follow up?
Yeah, I don't disagree with Councilor Gabriel's observation in terms of the parking garage or the new parking garage. I think that's scheduled to open in January, and I might have that wrong, but for some reason I thought it was going to be January. I'm not necessarily sure, just to speculate in terms of the actual impact of that garage. It's going to be the most expensive parking on campus. And the Union parking lot is also going to be closing. So there will be some folks transitioning from the Union parking lot and potentially paying a little more to get into the parking garage. But like I said, it may have some impact, but given the cost, I actually doubt that it will. But anyway.
Yeah, it's kind of a tough spot. Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. Short and sweet. There was an article in Laramie Live today on the prices and about the meters too, and when it would open. So if you look in there, that would probably help you out too a little bit.
Well, council members, I think the city manager probably would like to hear from us. Do we want to go ahead and move into this and do it still this winter? Maybe with an eye towards the pressure may decrease a little bit with the parking garage, but it might still be a good idea, and maybe hear about some of the possibilities for changes to the parking program that may help. Yeah, Councilmember Gabriel saying, okay, I think we'd all like to hope that it'll ease up a little bit. Councilmember Cumby, yes, support. Did you have another comment?
I think my only comment is that I have received a number of emails and phone calls from people south of Grand whose perception is that parking is becoming an increased problem on the streets. And then I've also had some students from the Branding Iron and also ASUW contact me about their concerns about reduced parking for students. So I think it is a concern both for residents and students, and that it might be good for us to start looking at it. And while we're considering it, then we can see how the parking deck starts to unfold. Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. All right, well, city manager, I think what we're hearing is let's go ahead and get something on the calendar, and we can talk about it. And then depending on what direction we go, hopefully we're providing the staff with adequate time to implement a change that the council might want to. And maybe we'll decide that we want to hold off, but it seems like based on the advice that you've given us, we should still move forward now in the event that we do opt for some changes.
That sounds great. We'll start planning for it.
All right. Any other recommendations for work sessions? All right. Well, then it's your favorite time, council members. I'm going to call on Council Member Schuster.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
The motion and a second. I'd ask you all that are in favor to say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you very much, council. Have a good night.